Lovely day here again to be testing out an e-bike. Now this is one from Accolmile. I've reviewed one of their city bikes, but this is now a mountain bike, which is more my style. I'm a mountain biker myself, and I do happen to have a Trek Rail 5. Now this model here from them is the Rocket Bear 1S. It is a mid-motor, this one, which is 750 watts, up to 160 Newton meters of torque. Super powerful. Shimano gears. And we do have hydraulic disc brakes with this, a front shock which has approximately 3 inches of travel, rear shock, so it is full suspension, and the rims on this one are 27.5 with CST tires that are 2.4 inches wide. So in this review, I'll be going over the top speed, the kind of range you can expect out of it, what it's like to ride, the 5 different assist levels, and anything else that comes up in my various days of testing out this bike. So let's first go over the design in detail here. I really like the aggressive stance of this bike here and the geometry. It's a large frame, it's a heavy bike. It is 35 kilos with that mid-mount motor. And it's a very powerful motor, this one. 750 watts, 160 Newton meters of torque maximum output from this. It's 48 volts, and it is from a company called Bafang. And the curious thing about this setup is the whole crank moves by itself. It comes with Logan brand hydraulic disc brakes, so 160 millimeters at the rear and slightly larger 180 millimeter discs at the front. The shock at the front is an SR Suntour. It's the XMC30, and it does have approximately 3 inches of travel. And the rear shock, this one has approximately 1 inch of travel. It's a lot stiffer than the front suspension, but I do like the setup and the layout of the suspension. It's very similar to what I have on my Trek Rail 5. The pedals I've used, they are Metal Femi brand ones that I've not seen before, and you'll notice that the welds around the frame and the paint job, the finish of it is excellent. But there are some areas like right here, this plate that covers over where the gears are with the motor, that do feel a little bit cheap, and these 2 screws here, they're not even painted blue, which I think they should be to match, of course. So the front wheel does have a quick release. We don't have one for the rear, and we've got 27.5 inch rims on this with CST Patrol tires. These ones are 2.4 inches wide. Then for our gears here, the rear cassette does have 8 different cogs in there, so we've got an 8-speed setup with this, and it's Shimano Altus, and they are using a Shimano chain, which is good to see. And what's really interesting to note is right here we do have this sensor here, so it knows when we change gears, and it takes the power off the motor for a split second, so it removes some of that torque on the chain here to hopefully increase the lifespan of it, so we don't have no crunching of gears under full load. However, it does rattle around, and I sometimes hear it whacking up against the frame there. Now we do have most of our cables all routed internally through the frame. There's a rubber gasket around here, so these cables are not going to chafe up against it. And you'll see that we've got these large plugs. That means everything is modular here, that if you need to replace the screen, you can just simply plug in a new one. You don't have to hunt around for where it connects, which is great. However, having all these plugs on the outside here does look a little bit ugly. It's not exactly aesthetically the best looking way to do it. The seat is comfortable enough. It's a typical mountain bike seat, so there's not a huge amount of cushioning to it. Now, you can raise it right up. It can also drop it right down. And I do like the fact that the frame goes down a lot lower than where the handlebars are, and this is great for riding down trails, so you can really get that seat out of the way. And we have a large removable battery. This one is 17.5 amp hours. It takes approximately 5 to 6 hours to charge. Now, under a little rubber cap here, we do have our plug for charging it. There's even a little status LED indicator here at the top. So when you press this, you can clearly see the remaining battery percentage in there without having to remove it, which is great. Now, this is lockable, so it does come with 2 keys. So you can lock it in there, and that means it's secure. No one can just walk along and go and steal that battery. Now, I really like the design of this battery. It is so easy just to slot it out from the side, so it's not complicated. Some of the other ones you have to kind of get it up and then out, and you got the frame in the way. Not with this. There's also a rubber gasket around where it plugs in. It does also come equipped here with a front headlight, as you can see. This is an LED one, so if you press the plus button and hold it down for about 4 seconds, it will turn on. The same to turn it off. It's relatively bright. It does light up the path ahead of you. It's sufficient enough for that. But we don't have a rear tail light with this bike. I mean, most don't. The Rocket Bear 1S comes with lock grips either side, and they are not going anywhere, no problems with those. So we do have this, an accelerator. Now you can remove it if you want to. You have to remove the grip, of course, and you can slot that off and simply unplug it. The rest of the bike will work fine. Then our controller, so this is the power button right at the top. We've got the plus level, the minus level for the pedal assist, but also for this to accelerate, and then I is the information to cycle through the different modes on the screen. Now the screen on this bike is fantastic. I'm not doing it justice here. It's reflecting a lot because it does have glass that's over it. It's fully laminated. It's an AMOLED screen, and it gives us a very clear indication of the power, our speed right there, trip, and the odometer. So you can cycle through the different modes here. You can see the max speed, average speed, time, and then back to the odometer there. Battery life is clearly indicated. Now when you are riding, you will often see this drop right down, but that's because it's measuring it from the voltage. And when the voltage drops, it then drops quite a bit there. So you can see sometimes it'll report 60%. You go, oh, I'm losing a lot of battery. But then when you're on the flat and you're pedaling along, it will probably bounce back then to 80% of what it really is. Then on the right, we've got our gear selector. So this is to go down the gears, that is to go up. We have a bell for safety and our rear brake. And you're probably wondering, what system does it use? A torque sensor or a speed sensor? So no, it's a speed sensor here that you will find connected up to the rear wheel. So I'm just starting out here in mode 1. Now this will get me up to about 10 kilometers, but it's really going to be dependent on the gear I'm in. So if in the high gear, it could even get me up to 25 kilometers per hour just in mode 1. So you don't even need to pedal, you can just use this to accelerate, and away I go. So that is just moving the crank there with the motor as if I was pedaling, basically simulating me pedaling, which I'm not doing at the moment. Now when I do start to pedal, once it detects that I'm moving, it gives me then the assistance. Now I'm not getting a lot at the moment because I'm just in mode 1, but if I change this now to mode 2, it's then powering along. It's a lot easier, and this rough gravel here and things like that, not a problem for a full suspension bike like this. I will test it out on the trails soon and also show you the max speed that you can get out of this, which is surprising. It's very powerful, as you can imagine, with a 750 watt motor. Now for a maximum speed test. I've got it in level 5, fully charged the battery. This is day 3 with this e-bike. And oh, got a person in the way here. So this is a nice big open stretch to test out that top speed. So I'm just going to push as hard as I can with that pedal assistance up to 35 kilometers per hour right now. 42, 44, 45, 47, 48, almost running out of road. So that is quick enough. So you should be able to get it up to 50 if you have a straight enough stretch that's clear. So it's my little climb test here now. So this is about a 25 to 30 degree gradient, this climb, and I tested out with the e-scooters and e-bikes. So I'll start off in level 1 here. I'm in the low gear, and I'll see how it fares just using the accelerator. So that's pretty slow going, but I'm just in the level 1. Now if you increase to level 2 right up to level 4 here, look at that, it's doing it without me even having to pedal, but I want to do some pedaling and test out the pedal assist. So once you start pedaling for just a few seconds, it detects that you're moving, and it then gives you that assistance, and you really feel it. Now it's got a lot of torque, and you feel it kick in. It almost pulls you back a little bit. There's almost too much power. I really do like this. I'm upsetting the dogs there. I really do like how when I change the gears, it cuts out for a second to make that gear change very smooth without grating any gears, putting any stress on that chain. Not even my Trek Rail 5 does that when I change gears. No, you can easily really put some stress on those gears. So level 1 is going up this just fine. Level 2 now, you can see there's a little power bar, and that is showing just how much power it's using. There's a gauge there, you don't know exactly how much, but up to 750 watts. So that's easy. I'm having to work a little bit. And now level 3, even easier. 4 and level 5. This climb is really easy. I'm even going to go up a few gears here. I mean, I'm powering up this. This is probably one of the best climbing e-bikes that I have reviewed now. Very good at these climbs, and it's got more power again than my Trek Rail 5. It's incredible the way this climbs. So good. I'm just powering up this. So I made it up here, the top. The climb was just so effortless. It really was easy compared to what I am used to. And if you were riding up this and got up to this kind of altitude, the height here where I am now on a normal bike, you'd be a bit of a sweaty mess by now. And I'm not actually too bad at all because it was so easy going. So I'm gonna ride a little bit of light trail here. We'll see how it handles it. Now I have noticed that the rear shock, it doesn't give a lot. Okay, a lot of travel. It's only got about an inch at best, not even that really. A little bit less. It seems very, very stiff. Now the other thing to point out too is that the kickstand, the stand here, it's loosened off. Now I've tightened it up a few times, but it seems that the stand itself, made out of alloy, I've stripped the thread in it, or it's just stripped because of the weight of this bike, the sheer weight of it. So we'll see how it handles this. I'm going to drop my seat post right down here, of course. Make sure it's nice and low. And I really do like this. You can get it down into a super low position. And that's great for completely getting it out of the way, and you can get your balance just a little bit better when going down some of these trails here. So I still have it in mode 4, so I powered ahead just then. And a little hard going, rocky a bit, of course along here with some little light bumps. So I wouldn't take this down any serious trails. The front shock does a good job, but as mentioned, that rear shock, it's almost non-existent. Really doesn't feel like it's doing that much. So you could probably swap it out or upgrade it, but really do want to go down that path of upgrading parts. So here is the drop here. See how it's going to handle it with a 27.5-inch wheels, should be okay. Oh, not too bad. Probably the best out of these cheaper e-bikes that I have reviewed. And now let's see how it fares going up this trail here. So I've got it set to level 4, which is quite powerful, in the 3rd gear. And I'm now rocketing ahead. So this should definitely help me out. Almost feels like I'm going a little bit too fast with some big rocks around here. So if you get your balance forward a little bit, you're able to do this. Climb up these trails that I wouldn't be able to tackle on a non-electric assisted bike. So for these kind of rocky climbs, you can do it, but it is very hard going with that front shock, and especially no rear travel. Rear wheel tends to bounce around a bit, but hey, I'm able to do this. So now for my typical brake test, I'm going to go as fast as I can. We'll try not to go over about 40 kilometers or 30. And as soon as I get to that post, I'm going to brake, full braking pressure. Just wanted to point out, first 5 kilometers, these brakes were quite poor as they needed bedding in. So here we go. Makes a bit of a strange noise. Not bad, but I still think I need to bed these brakes in a little bit more. I've only done 10 kilometers and I'll be testing this bike out for another few days to really get those Ks up. Now what about the expected range out of this? So I've just been burning around here, going up a lot of climbs. I've just been powering around in full speed most of the time, and I do find the climbs on this thing is excellent. However, it takes a toll on the battery, so I'm only looking at about 40 kilometers with my weight and the kind of riding that I'm doing around here. Now if I wasn't going up so many hills, if I didn't use the pedal assist level, say 4 or 3, and I kept it to 2 or to 1, I do believe then 50 kilometers is possible with this. Now they claim 60 on average. I think that 60 may be a little bit far-fetched unless you ride around on the flat mostly, you're not going off-road, and you don't have a lot of climbs there. So a lot of things I like about this bike here. The screen, that's so good. It's huge, very large. It gives me a lot of information, and the best part about it is just so clear to read. So much better than the screen I have with my Bosch CX powered Trek Rail 5. And speaking of things better than that bike too, I like the fact that it has a sensor that when you change the gears, it cuts the power to the motor. This is something that Trek need to look at, and Bosch. I think it's really good to have. So it cuts the power for a split second, and that makes the gear changes a lot smoother. I'm being eaten alive here by flies. That's a good thing there. Now, we just got typical kind of low-end Shimano Altus gears with this. It's nothing amazing. The brakes in the beginning were a little bit scary until I bed them in after about 5 kilometers, just to burn off that layer that's on them. And now the braking is okay. I don't find it's too much of a problem. We get lock grips. The front suspension does have about 3 inches of travel. Rear suspension is poor. So it only gives me about an inch of travel, if that, not a lot there. I just find it's a bit too stiff. I do hope that they can think about changing that rear shock there. The battery is very good. The fact that you can just slot it out very easily and it's lockable there, so no one's able to steal it. And it charges in only about 5 hours, 5 to 6 hours to fully charge. 17.5 amp hours isn't actually too bad for that. Now, there's a couple of areas that I would definitely look at changing on this bike, and that is the stand. Don't bother with the kickstand because it cannot really handle the weight of this bike. Weight-wise, this thing is, it's a monster, okay? It's 35 kilos. That is very, very heavy for a bike. So the front end, just to pop it up a curb or some rocks, isn't so playful, this bike, because of that there. But it's all about this, the Rocket Bear 1S, the climbing performance, that powerful motor. That's the big positive for me out of this particular model here. So thank you so much for watching my review here of Accolmile's Rocket Bear 1S.